Hi, and welcome to this episode of Brute for Change. Today, we have an entrepreneur who is revolutionizing the way we grow our food to feed a growing population. The target um, uh, is to feed 10 billion people by 2030. So we have today with us Sanket, the co-founder of Nutrifresh, a very interesting hydroponics company based in Bombay and Pune. Uh, and before I give you any more details, I would love to hand it over back to Sanket. Sanket, thank you for being here, first of all. And let's just start off with a quick introduction to yourself. What made you get into this space? How did you decide to start Nutrifresh before we get into the details of what Nutrifresh does?
Thank you, Karan, for having me. We are indeed very happy that we are a part of this podcast being organized by Green Frontier Capital. To start with how we started our journeys, right now I'll just give you basics that NutriFresh is into hydroponic farming. Hydroponic farming is nothing but soilless agriculture, where instead of soil, we use various other medias which are inert in nature and doesn't react with the plants and gives you optimum produce with lesser use of water. I know too complicated to understand as agriculture. I'll simplify it by I'll explain my journey and eventually you'll come to know that why and what hydroponic farming is. So after doing my BTech and then completing my MBA, I started working for a bank called a Central Bank of India, where I was working as a credit manager, and my first posting was in Pune. And simultaneously, the co-founder, Mr. Ganesh Nikam, he did his BSc chemistry, then he did his MBA, cleared his CFA level 3 from USA, then he was running his own debt syndication business. So he basically came up with some agriculture proposals in the bank where I was processing the proposals. Being a non-agri background, it was difficult for me to understand agriculture. So I used to ask Ganesh because he predominantly came from an agri background. His father and all were from agri backgrounds. So I used to ask him typical questions about agriculture, like how much the cow gives milk, how often it gives the milk, how do you see the electricity problems coming in the rural areas, how do you see the connectivity? Because in India, in Mumbai, I was typically using BBMs and everything, but still there was nothing called as any internet also in those kind of villages. So these gave us a good stronghold between me and my co-founder. When my questions started increasing, when the proposal started getting more bigger, I used to ask more complex questions to him. And one fine day he said, "If do one thing, you come to my father, you can ask him whatever questions about agri you require, and he'll be in a better position to answer." We went on a lunch to his house. For the first 3 or 4 questions that I asked about agri, he was very patient and calm enough to make me understand about agriculture. But after the fourth question, he got irritated and he said, "Do one thing, if you still want to learn agriculture, I have my own field, start working over there." So this something called as a small thing triggered us that, okay, let us start doing agriculture. Nothing planned as such, but as a hobby, let's start doing agriculture. So we took up 4 acres of sugarcane land and we started growing sugarcane over there because predominantly everyone was growing sugarcane only. So we started growing sugarcane. Along with the banking job, we did sugarcane over there. In 1.5 year, generally the neighboring farmers, they had a total outcome of 60 to 70 tons per acre of production, whereas we had 100 to 120 tons per acre of production. The reason was we did some online surveys, or we looked for online videos, we did some thorough research, and we came to know there is a process called as bundling. There is a process called as drip irrigation, via which you can increase the yield per acreages. And that is what we did. So this was with the help of the technology, we could bring in a change in the per acre yield, and that boosted us the higher profitability.
I'm just
You know,
curious to know.
when
I'm so sorry to cut you
sorry.
off because you were. I'm just so curious to know because you said you use drip irrigation for sugarcane, and sugarcane is an extremely water consuming crop, right?
Correct, correct.
I'm just like curious to know, how much of water did your farm end up using, say, per acre compared to your neighbors that you were experimenting your drip irrigation with?
So per day, a farmer per acre utilizes 40,000 liters of water for flood irrigation, for sugarcane, whereas we used only 5,000 liters of water per day. We saved 35,000 liters of water per day over 1.5 years of growing sugarcane.
Wow. That's that's incredible. And this is just by using simple drip irrigation.
Simple drip irrigation, which is a very basic phenomenon or very basic technology that we implemented in our farms. After the first success, you generally feel that you have done something really good and you can pursue it for long. But sooner our careers kicked in and we had a promotion process in Central Bank of India. Ganesh had some proposals going on. We couldn't do much about in agriculture. But soon, if you know, in public sector banks, there is something called as promotion with transfer. I got promoted and my transfer was in the Northeast zone. Being a Bombayite, I used to feel Pune a bit slower and going to a northeast would have completely changed everything. So I had a discussion with my co-founder Ganesh, and we had a discussion that we have done good in agriculture. We'll do something about our careers if we take things rightly. So let us quit our jobs and our small businesses and let's focus completely on agriculture. So this basically the promotion triggered something into the agri business, and I left my job. Ganesh left his business, and we started doing agriculture. The first thing that we did was a controlled environment agriculture, where you have those polyhouses, you have proper drip irrigation, you have climate control, you have air circulation fans inside those polyhouses, and we saw the demand for flowers were more or less consistent throughout the year. There was an upsurge during the festive season, and there were downsurge during the non-festive seasons. But more or less, the prices were quite consistent in India. We started with floriculture. We did 4 acres of floriculture in a controlled environment agriculture, wherein we were growing roses, gerberas, and orchids, which was selling good in the market. Uh, Simultaneously, we got to know that government of India and Maharashtra are both giving subsidies toward this controlled environment agriculture. We could get those subsidies with our presentation and our reach in the market. And that is how we became profitable within 2 years of the operation. But we soon understood that flower as a market cannot be scaled or cannot be have a multiple returns. There is something called as food. In future, there people are going to kill each other for food. That is what the only thing will be. So we need to be
Yeah.
food sufficient, food reliant.
Mm.
India predominantly is a food sufficient country. I wouldn't say it is food deficit country, but the quality of food is not that great. It is a third grade material that has been received still today in the urban cities also. The top notch qualities have been exported to the other countries. So I would say India is a food sufficient country, but not a quality sufficient country. So we
Yeah.
need to do a quality agriculture, and that is what our main motive was. We were searching for good agricultural land for doing big scale of agriculture. We came to know that government of Maharashtra is leasing big agricultural lands to corporates for doing agriculture for a long amount of time. So we leased out 250 acres of land in a place called as Fulton in Satara for a period of 10 years from government of Maharashtra. Today we are growing sugarcane, baby corn, sweet corn, maize, jalapenos, chilies, watermelons, and banana over there, and it's 100% under contract farming. It is like the companies, processing units, they contract with us for growing these kind of veggies. We sell it to them at a fixed price, which has been pre-calculated on the day one. And the agri-related help is being given by these corporates. So it's my entire produce is 100% guaranteed sell. I don't have to search for the market. And this was the only difference. We could do it because of the help of the technology. We searched for good people who wants to do contract farming. We connected those people and then we started doing those. In a good 2 years, 3 years span, we again got good amount of profit. But whatever learnings we got in the open field cultivation in floriculture, we understood that we need to grow in food segment. We need to have some systems which are agile, which are completely tech based and which can give you production round the year. In the open field also, there were producers coming on and off during the season and off season time, where we couldn't actually capture the market prices because they were already predetermined.
Yeah.
So we needed something that can go ongoing on a daily basis, and that is where we came across hydroponic farming, which is controlled environment agriculture, where you know do not use soil. So basically, you help your plants from the impurities of the soil. You give water in such a way that the plants require adequate amount of nutrients in the water so that the plants can absorb it in the adequate quantity. You don't overboard it or undergo it. And that is where we came into hydroponic farming. So we started with 10 acres of agriculture, where we initially had the capital put in by Nutrifresh and the bank loans. We started selling those produces to major modern retailers. Like at that point of time, we had Big Bazaar, we had Nature's Basket, Star Bazaar. Right now, we are doing with Big Basket, Star Bazaar, Nature's Basket, Zepto, Swiggy, all the modern trade and online trade that you know. From 10 acres, we first got our equity funding in the year 2022. And Green Frontier Capital was obviously one of the investors who had invested a substantial amount and believed in the concept of climate change and Nutrifresh getting along together. Then we recently raised a round from SBI Venture Capital Funds, where now
Okay.
till 2025, we will be having 100 acres of operations now.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And honestly, congratulations on that round because you got SBI Cap Ventures, the NEEV fund, actually to invest in your
Yes, the NEEF fund.
right, which is like a joint venture between SBI Cap Ventures and BII. So I mean,
Correct.
that's incredible. So, uh, I've been to your farm, so with the benefit of that, I've also seen the work that you've also done, right? Uh, what people like I think don't understand, and I would love to really hear from you, is that the land that you're actually working on, that's arid. It there's nothing that can grow there. You're converting these parcels of land into productive places to actually grow food. Talk to me more about that.
Typically, in hydroponic farming, you don't require soil. So you don't have to cut down forest for your food uh, growing. Typically, what is
Yeah,
happening these days is people cutting down forest so that they can get better soil, and better soil gives you better yield. So people are cutting down forest for its food requirement, food safety. Instead, in a hydroponic farming, it's a twofold benefit. You don't have to cut down the forest, you can preserve the forest for your future requirements, and you can grow these kind of farms in the places where the lands are quite barren. Now, when I say quite barren, hydroponic as a technology is being used in spacecraft as well. So people on the International Space Station are growing veggies via hydroponic farming because
yeah,
you don't require soil, it grows only in water. Apart from that, even hydroponic farming has been very famous in the areas where the climate is very colder, like in the Himalayas. We
yeah.
are on the verge of signing an agreement with DRDO for setting up a 2-acre facility in Uttarakhand, near the China border.
Oh wow.
So where there is very less soil, no soil, and you have to grow these veggies in a particular atmosphere only. So that is the benefit of hydroponic farming, that it can grow on any land. You don't require soil for it, but the only thing that is required in a hydroponic farming is that you require water consistently, though very less amount, but a
Yeah.
consistent water requirement throughout the year. For
Got it.
example, if in a normal field, if you require around 40,000 liters of water, we can survive by 3 to 4,000 liters of water per day. So it's 1/10 of the water that we are using. And also that 1/10 water is recycled.
Yeah. I think that was the next point that I was actually going to get around, is that you recycle a lot of the water that you actually use.
Yes, yes. It's only the water that has been absorbed by the plants. Only that much is topped up every day.
Yeah.
So there is zero wastage of the water that we are having it. And whatever water goes to the plants, they get evaporated by the sun.
Yeah.
So again, that's a we are putting down in the entire chain only.
I'm reminded of this statistic that I'd heard from the Stockholm Institute on climate change, which actually said that, a household of four people, they consume close to 2,000 liters of water every day. Um,
Correct.
and 1,500 liters of that is because of the food we consume.
Yes, yes.
So that's incredible,
And
right? So,
that's
so
really
for
sad.
like
Yes.
a family like of four, which probably on a normal day would eat close to about 300 to 400 grams of rice, that's almost 1,000 liters like of water right there to grow that, right?
1,000 liters of water. Correct. Correct. That's the correct statistic. Yes.
So
Instead,
no, you were saying,
my
sorry.
labor quarter has a 1 lakh liter of water tank now. My labor quarter has a 1 lakh liter water tank, whereas my entire plant capacity is 20,000 liters.
So uh on your premises the statistics are probably reversed, but that's, I think, like the point I was actually trying to get to is that smart farming is also meaning that, with we are in a way directly touching upon the water issues that are also which are also facing India. And India has 20 cities which are essentially on the risk of being water deficient. So, smart farming is probably the way to go for our food security, but also for our water security. So,
True.
so with that, like just to move on, with Nutrifresh, right? So you've got this 200 acres right now. What is the vision that you have for Nutrifresh today?
Typically, in a 5 years down the line, uh, there won't be enough land available with the Nutrifresh to grow because of the capex cost. Since it's a capex heavy investment. But over the future, what we are trying to do is we want to create a hub farm and a satellite farm.
Yeah.
Now, when we call a hub farm, this 200 acres will be a hub farm. The marginal farmer who has 2 acres or 3 acres of land, we will try to convert that one third of a acre, so one third of his land or 1 acre of his facility into a hydroponic farm, and we'll try to grow those veggies over there, bring it to the hub farm, and then sell it in the market. So typically, we'll try to change the farmer's income as well, which on a normal range, if they are earning 2 to 3 lakh rupees a acre in an annum, they will be earning 15 to 18 lakh rupees per acre per annum in that 1 acre of the facility.
I want to actually get
So
down
that's
to,
quadruple of an income.
yeah. So I actually want to break down those economics, right? So because hydroponics is known to be very capex intensive, and you need to use very precision equipment for the entire process. Talk to me about what does it cost to actually set up a system, and what are the benefits? How does the income grow 8 or 9 times?
Okay. So typically, there's normal science behind it. People say कि आप लोग कुछ केमिकल यूज करते हो जिससे प्लांट कम टाइम में उगता है. So there's nothing like that. Whatever time the plant takes to grow, it takes the same time to grow. We don't change the dynamics or the characteristics of the plants. If a lettuce takes 40 days to grow, it takes 40 days to grow. The only difference between hydroponic farming and the normal land cultivation is, in a land, if you put the seed today, your land gets occupied for 40 days for growing that lettuces. What different we do, since we don't have the land involved or the soil involved, we grow this lettuces in the nursery where it requires lesser space. So for the first 20 days, the lettuces grows in the nursery. Then we can take those lettuces and then plant it in the main growing area where it takes 20 days. Now, for an example, in a 360 day cycle, if your land is being occupied for 40 days for one cycle of the lettuces, you may have 9 cycles in a year.
Yeah.
But for example, if you have 20 days occupied that land for particular lettuces, only 20 days out of 360 days, then you can grow 18 times in that particular area. So
Yeah.
you're doubling your capacity in terms of growing.
Okay.
So this is a simple maths that we are doing. Apart from that, yes, generally for setting up 1 acre of the facility, you require 2 to 2.5 crore of rupees.
Right. Right.
But whereas in the normal open field cultivation, you spend only like 6 to 7 lakhs and you can have the land up and running.
Yeah.
Now, as I've shown you that there is 2x production already being happening. Now, the problem is these kind of lettuces cannot grow during monsoon season. So out of those 9 cycles, you have to cut down your 3 cycles
Yeah.
because during monsoon, you cannot grow them. Apart from that, you cannot grow during summer season also because you require higher amount of water for sustenance of those crops. So you have to remove those 3 cycles as well. So typically in a year, you grow only 3 cycles of lettuces.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas in a hydroponic farm, you can grow 18 cycles of lettuces, which is 6x higher.
Got it.
That
Got it.
is one bigger. Apart from that, the pricing. When you know that the open field farmer cannot grow during summer and during monsoon season, the prices that you get by growing it inside a controlled environment is twice higher than the open field cultivation
Got
during those season.
Yeah.
So there is a seasonality also which kicks in for your revenue or the profit making.
Yeah.
And this is how you make quadruple of a income what you're making in the open field cultivation.
Got it. So you make like almost 6 or 8 times the income than you would like on open field cultivation. But
12x is
capex,
the 12x.
but the capex cost is also fairly high, right? So
Capex cost is pretty higher. Apart from that, the bigger problem in the open field cultivation is that the soil fertility it diminishes year by year.
correct.
Either you have to top up with a new soil, or you may have to use additional pesticides
Yeah.
or insecticides to increase your yield, which makes you out of the organic culture. It's
Hmm.
a pesticide food. It's
Yeah.
not food basically, it's pesticide that you're eating. So that is where the productivity reduces. But over here, because you have put a capex, you just have to change the coco peat inside the polyhouse every time, or you can reuse it also. And the capex can sustain itself for 25 years.
Okay. And
So
what would be the
that is
typical payback for someone like this, right? So if I had to
so
do,
generally if a person is doing only 1 acre of a farm and growing only one or two types of vegetables, his sellability becomes a little difficult because the corporates, modern traders, they require the assortment of 30, 40 veggies from a single vendor.
yeah,
They will not go for typical finding like 10 different vendors for 50 different fruits. They will go crazy because these people are from either IIMs or MBA colleges where they know how to punch in the order better way and get the things done. So they require everything from one particular vendor who can satisfy their needs. So that is why they come up to players like us. But for a typical person who does 1 or 2 acres of the facility, if he has the marketing and the sales channel defined, then the typical ROI is 4 to 5 years. But if we do economics of scale, suppose you go till 40 acres, 50 acres, 100 acres in one location, your ROI comes between 3 and 4 years only.
okay. So there are economies like of scale with I mean, with the larger you go, like in terms of just the facility. But actually, to solve this problem, right now to get a little bit more detail, um, we have 150, almost 180 million farmers in our country, right? Uh, Agri-tech per se has not really taken off in our country. It's always touched the top pyramid of the farmers. It's really not trickled down to the bottom. The farmers today who are the small marginal farmers who constitute 80% of that 150 million do not have access to technology like this or the means to have access. And when I say means, it's mostly financial means. They don't have the means to actually have access to this. In your mind, can hydroponics change that equation?
Yes. See, if you see the current government policies, they are pro horticulture. If you have seen last time's budget, there
Yeah.
was specifically the pressure was given for horticulture. And this year, the government has introduced hydroponic farming under horticulture. So definitely there is good amount of push going to happen for hydroponic farming as well. Yes, you are right that the funding till date happened only in the upstream of agri-tech sector. When I say upstream, it's typically the trading platforms were given more of funding. But if you see with Green Frontier Capital coming up or Florentry Capital or SBI putting in funds upstream of agriculture also, the major farmers who get the access for this capital definitely wants to convert their farm into better growing areas so they can earn higher profitability, and that can happen with, I would prefer, at least one or two great success stories in India. If you see, people have aspiration for success. If we see at least a person like a Swiggy being a $1 billion company, now till date, if you see, there were no company with $1 billion, and suddenly in India you have like 200 unicorns in 3 years. So it's always the first success story becomes a difficult part, but the rest follows after that. So we require only two or three success stories in the downstream, which are typically becomes very big, very large, so that people will be in a better way to follow those companies and the penetration will become much higher. See, because of the use of tech, even the farmers in the like in the Gramin villages, they've started using WhatsApp and everything. So the access is right now there to each and everyone. It's just what kind of data are being provided to them, that becomes a critical part. And these success stories become like a front runner of the entire race. So that is where I find that if one or two such success stories comes up, then definitely the scenario can completely change. The farmers, see, I'll tell you very frankly, current farmers have the capital or farmers have the appetite to take up capital also. There are hundreds of fintech companies working in MFIs. and they're ready to fund, but it's the knowledge they want, that they want to hear certain success stories in the market, via which they will try to follow those success stories. And that is why capital is not a concern, that I feel, because last 5 years were completely for fintech guys. So people have access to capital now. It's just the way to implement it.
Got it. And are you seeing like traction from fintech in actually it's actually funding these projects for farmers?
Yes, I would say yes, because there is steel involved. There are commodity products involved while making things under poly houses. It's
Yep.
not typical of farm equipments, but they are typical commodity equipments. Like there is steel, there is plastic, there is cocoa peat, there are farm equipments, there are sensors, which are commoditized in the market, and there are big players who are manufacturing it. So these MFIs, they get tied up with those corporates and give it a cheaper rate to this farmers who can grow in this controlled environment agriculture.
Got it. Got it. That's interesting. So that's actually breaking like a stereotype that people typically know of in the agri-tech sectors, that listen, today the problems that plague the past have sort of been resolved because of technology moving on the access to capital space. Now it's about providing them access to good technology to be able to implement on their farms, and to
Correct,
also
true.
to create those success stories, to be like, listen, we're not selling you snake oil, we're actually giving you like a solution that is going to impact your family, improve your income, and improve your livelihood.
Sure, sure,
So
yes.
there's so I actually see Nutrifresh, and I actually really like the name, right? Because you spoke about it. We lack nutritious food, and that's the next point that I want to actually come to. So Nutrifresh is like fresh, nutritious food. And to be honest, the salad that I had when I was at your farm, like when I actually visited your facility, was probably one of the best I've had. I don't think I've had like a better salad or a fresher salad ever in any restaurant, hotel in the world, right? It was so good and so fresh, and hardly anything done to it. It was just how tasty those vegetables are. So two questions that I actually wanted to ask you here, right? Hydroponics is also sort of
Yes.
like akin to very high value vegetables and crops. It discounts your staples and standards, right? Uh, do you think that it's only about time when that changes?
Actually, Karan, the time has already come, and people post COVID, people have started getting aware about where their food is coming from. I have seen this trend with people in Nature's Basket and Star Bazaar asking the vendors, ये कहाँ से आया है, कौन से farm से आया है, कहाँ उगता है. And they've started to a place where they've started immediately gone online, check the website, check the farm, how they're looking, and then they've bought the food also. So it's the time has already come where people want to know where their producers are coming from, how healthy the food is, and whether they should consume it or not, whether it's good for their health. Even if a simple question, whether on your plate, if I'm eating something, like, is this food going to help my body or is going to damage my body? And that one question can also change things. Just a simple question at that point of time. So people have started realizing the fact. Acha, previously, when pre-COVID, when I heard about hydroponic, it was like only 15, 20 odd bunches of people were doing hydroponic in the entire India. But COVID being a blessing in disguise, post COVID, I saw like thousands of farms coming up in hydroponic, and people were getting aware about hydroponic, everything. So the knowledge of hydroponic has already penetrated a large in COVID, because people knew that the only sector running is agriculture now. And the only best thing to do in agriculture is hydroponic now.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to market ourselves or make people aware about hydroponic farming and its benefit, because people already knew about it. And rest is the physical health, which has been a prime concern of everyone. They know what they are eating, and they want to know what they are eating more. You won't believe, there is a typical family, if you know Oberoi Splendor on the JVLR. It's an entire
Yep.
society.
Yep.
The secretary called us that we have been ordering your veggies for a good 2 years, 3 years down the line. We have our AGM passed, and we want to, some of our members want to visit your farm and have your store inside the facility only, inside the building only.
Oh wow.
So it's not the people who are aware, the society also is getting aware about all these things. And they want to do good about the society as well.
Yeah,
So if you say there's a right time going to come, no, I think it has already come.
got it. But but again, are we so so when you say the right time has already come, it's saying, are we saying the entire vegetable basket of a household can be grown hydroponically at its cost today?
See, Karan, since the cost of setting up an entire hydroponic farm is pretty high,
Yeah,
that is predominantly because of the consultants or the people who have made it such that it is beyond the reach of a common man. Only rich people can do it. With more farms coming up, I think the process will become so standardized that the
got it.
prices will go down.
The
And
cost
at
curves
that
will come
point of
down.
time, cost will come down because right now every farm is a customized farm
Yeah,
and every customization requires higher pricing. If there is a typical standardization which kicks in, then there will be mass production. Mass production will bring down the prices. And then at that point of time, even your staple veggies like your onion, potato, and tomatoes can be grown inside those controlled environment agriculture, and the prices can be brought down drastically. See, right now we are doing exotic vegetables is because of the fact that the exotic vegetables gives you higher pricing. But this kind of type of hydroponic farm can grow each and everything under the roof, whatever you want to grow. It's just that you cannot grow bigger trees, but whatever smaller crops within a year kind of a crops can be grown. It's just the type of profitability that you want to attend, and that is why we are doing exotic vegetables. Tomorrow, if you want to do turmeric, or if you want to do ashwagandha, or if you want to do garlic, you can still grow all of these in a hydroponic farming as well and earn higher amount of profitability as well.
got it. So the benefits of actually higher yield, like better quality, are there regardless of the vegetable that you're growing. It's just
Yes.
using smarter technology to actually doing it. That's very interesting. Um, just last question here before we move on, right? So, the future of food in your, like, I love to talk about the future of food because I don't know how we are going to eat, grow. The one thing that I keep telling people is that, listen, we need to shrink our supply chains of food, right? In my utopian future, my housing society will have space where I grow the food for the where we grow food for our people, for the members of the society. Are we far away from that concept? And I think hydroponics will actually play a very big role in doing that, or making that making that possible. Are we far away from that concept?
Uh, See, Karan, yes, and I would say yes and no for both things. Real estate prices have boomed like anything. So the vicinity near your cities or soon which are agricultural belts will be converted into real estate cement parks. And definitely the cement parks will now require certain amount of agriculture to typically sustain it. There's a concept called as container farms, which has come in already in US, and people have started converting their terraces into container farms.
Exactly. Yeah.
And your green leafies, yes, green leafies are typically the people go to the top of the terraces to buy veggies or basically pluck veggies and come back and eat those in your own households. So that day is not far. I would say in 10 years down the line, even Mumbai city, every terrace location will have those container farms will and that will be utilized for growing your daily greens and which will available easily on the terraces. And these kind of farms where you have to grow in uh, non I would say different areas. So definitely they're not conventional areas. Then definitely you have to go for hydroponic farming,
Yeah.
and that is where the hydroponic farming will kick in more because then you will know the importance of growing things in an unconventional way also.
Got it. Nice. Uh, just how has your journey been as a founder, as someone dealing in, or like in the space of climate tech or climate investments, or just like climate tech, right? How has your experience been? You've raised a couple of rounds like of financing. You said uh you did one round with us, and then you did uh your recent round with SBI Neve. How did that go? Like how was the entire like approach, the whole like funding ecosystem for you?
Okay. So as far as the journey as a founder is concerned, it has been really exciting because every day you learn different something new in this era because there is no godfather as such in this market. You have to use your own brains or use your common sense basically to do things in a different way. The journey has been really wonderful. I have learned myself, or I have become a better person than I was yesterday with each day passing in agriculture. Never ever in my life I would have thought that I'll get into agriculture because I come from a typical business family, which is into trading or hardware or all those things. So agriculture was never a part of it. But today, all my family members, they look up to me as a business and not as a typical, when you say in our language, we say kedut.
Mm.
या खेती कर रहा है. It's not looked down, but it looks looked up upon that. Okay, he's doing a business, he's doing farming, he's doing agri-tech. So that has been a tradition, like a good amount of shift in the people's mentality when we say I'm doing farming. Initially, it was acha, he is doing farming, but right now, oh, he's done farming.
Oh.
That thing gives us a confidence a lot in the approach that you are doing right now, and this has also penetrated in the funding market as well. So typically, any agri-tech space that goes into the funding process is like, okay, agri-tech hai. But after COVID, the thing for agri-tech, the respect that agri space should have got a long, long time ago in India has grown by leaps and bounds in last 3 or 4 years. I always say every business has a decade of wonderful business. So initially it was IT, then we had fintechs, and now it's agri-tech. So
Okay.
the next decade is agri-tech.
Okay. No, that's interesting because I personally like the agri-tech space. I've been working on it and working in it for many years. And I think it is one of the hardest problems to actually solve, but it's also it's extremely humbling, like you said. Like once you sort of you have that problem solved, you know that you're solving like a problem for humanity, not just because you can make a business out of it. You're actually solving
Correct.
like a human problem. Um, just a last few questions. What were some of the key challenges you sort of faced in your journey? Maybe if you could maybe just highlight like a few of them, and what sort of advice would you give to founders of today who are attempting to do something new in these spaces, uh, and are also potentially they're also potentially raising money?
Okay. First thing, the problems that we faced, as I told you, there was no typical godfather in this business. So when there is no godfather, you don't know whom to look upon. There are no SOPs in the business. There is no way in which you can tackle the problems which are already been done. Apart from that, the biggest problem was the human resource. You don't get talented pool of people who can replace you in some of the jobs so that you can do some other job.
Yeah,
It's very difficult to find those kind of people. Either you have to go across different industries in the FMCG, like you will get in the dairy segment or in the other segments, to become a person like them as a BDO or a CFO, so that you typically take up some other businesses. But as a founder, we used to hustle with multiple roles in the initial time. So people used to ask us whenever you go to a fundraise, Acha, what is the position? So I say, sir, if you call me CEO, CO, CFO, whatever CXOs you want to apply, we are doing everything right now because we couldn't find any proper people who can do those jobs. So that was the major problem that we like witnessed while in the initial struggling days. But sooner or later, we realize that across the verticals, there are people who are enthusiastic about agriculture. They want to work in agriculture. They don't know it. So they just need to be groomed well so that they can take up your positions. So as a founder, I would like to tell all the new founders who wants to come into these kind of businesses, first thing is never give up. Come what may, never give up. If you believe in your idea, initially people may not like it, but eventually people will like it because you are liking it yourself.
yeah.
So don't doubt yourself. If you have taken a decision, never give up. You will get resources. You will get people to like you, to believe in you. Initially, when we started, we had a team of 9 people who believed in us. So we were two and there were 9 others with us. Today, we have a family of 350 people with us
And I like that you
within
call
a
them
span
a
of 2 years.
family. And I
Yeah.
like that you call them a family like of 350. That's amazing.
So we have a family of 350 members right now. So imagine right now 350 people are believing in those 2 people who are going to make decisions for all those 350. Now it's again a difficult task on our part also, that whenever we make those decisions, we have to think about those 350 people and make those decisions right now.
Correct.
So never give up on your dreams. If you know, if you have a conviction about doing
Yeah.
something, it may come down. People always like Sandeep also. I admire Sandeep a lot. He was the first person to tell that downstream agriculture will get funding in the future. Don't worry. We were struggling with funding in the first part. Green Frontier was the first one to commit the fund that we will put in the downstream, and we understand that downstream agriculture requires fund. So definitely, if you have conviction in our, if we suppose if we didn't have any conviction in our story, definitely Sandeep wouldn't get convinced. So
Yeah.
it's the first one. I have to get convinced myself. Then I'll be able to convince people, and you will get people who will fund you, who will believe in you. So, like my only advice is never give up.
Nice. Just last question. I've asked like a lot of people this, and the most common answer that I've got is that, uh, which I'll tell you. Let me ask the question first. Who are your role models? And I've usually got the most common answer has been multiple. Uh, so who are your role models? Who are people that you like to emulate, or have learned different things from, and want to sort of like emulate your life behind
Okay. My first and the only role model is my father.
that?
Uh,
And
he,
okay.
he's not a great businessman. He has not achieved so much. But the only thing is, when I started this business, he was the first person to tell me, "You do wish whatever you want to do, go ahead. I'm standing behind you."
Wow.
And those words actually made me do so many crazy things that today I am whatever I am is due to my father's confidence in me, and the words which he said, "You want to do whatever you want to do, I'm behind you." And those are the types of words that keep you motivated. And you know there is always a fall. So even if any person doing a job today, they require a fallback option. And my fallback was my father, which I knew is standing great over there. So it gives you a good amount of upstream. Like you can go how much ever you want, because you know at every point of my father is behind my back. And
That's
that is what is the biggest role model in my life is my father.
okay. So that to me is probably one of the best answers that I've received so far, right? So someone to actually say that my role model is my father. That's amazing. With that, Sanket, thank you so much for being here. Really like appreciate it. This was a great chat. Like again, like a topic which I love, which is very close to my heart as well. We've had like a lot of interactions on this, and I'm sure we're gonna have a lot more. Uh,
Definitely.
but thank you again for being here, and for Green Frontier too. It's been extremely heartening, though it's still early days, to be part of your journey. And I think we know that you will be an extremely successful company very, very soon. We have your back. We're here to give you whatever you need. So we look forward to actually working with you more. But again, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karan.